Shalom and good morning, everyone, and welcome to WOW equals Words of Wisdom number 10. Are you willing to do what it takes to be transformed? Are you willing to do what it takes to be transformed? Now, Romans or Romaim, chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 says this: I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Yah, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto Yahuwah, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Yah. Now, I ask you this question again: are you willing to do what it takes to be transformed? I have to ask myself that question all the time. And I have to admit to you that the answer has been no at different points and times in my life. I'm just being honest. Um, if the answer were yes, I would have changed a long time ago in certain areas of my life. And that's the question. It's a hard question to ask yourself. Are you willing to do what it takes to be transformed? Now let's look at that prefix trans, Trans. It means across, beyond, through, change, thoroughly. Wow. Are we willing to go across? You may have to go across some things, okay? Or come across some things in order to be transformed. You may have to go beyond what you're doing now to be transformed. You may have to go through some things to be transformed. You may have to change thoroughly in certain areas of your life or all areas of your life to be transformed. Now, spiritually, we have to change thoroughly in every single area of our lives. And it starts with us renewing our minds. We've got to change the way that we think. We cannot be transformed without change. And we can't change without renewing our minds. It's just as simple as that. We can't, skip over, the process that we must go through to get to a place of transformation. And, as I was thinking about this and meditating upon this, I had to really say that the answer was truly no. The answer was truly no at different points in times. In some areas, the answer has been yes, because I have started to renew my mind, which has brought about change. And it's not just change for a day, it's change for a long time. It's changing over time. It's also renewing your mind over time. So we've got to be very, very cognizant of that. That it's not just a thing of, oh, I do this for one day, okay? And then the next day you're right back to doing what you've always done. Because all of us have a default mode. All of us have a default mode that keeps us from renewing our mind, which brings us to a place of change, which if we change for a long enough period of time consistently will bring us into a place of transformation. And so more often than not, we fall back into that default mode. We fall back into what is comfortable. We fall back into what makes our flesh feel good. But, when we, look at these verses, and it says, be not conformed to this world. And more often than not, we are conforming to the things of the world. We are conforming to the way that society says that we should do things. We are conforming to fit in. And we don't want to stand out. But we need to learn that we are going to have to stand out if we are going to be transformed. We are going to stick out like a sore thumb if we're going to be transformed. If our minds are going to be renewed. And when your mind starts being renewed, it changes the way that you think. It changes the way that you look at yourself. It changes the way that you carry yourself and the way that you function in your life. When you renew your mind, and it'll take you across some things, okay? It'll take you through some things. It'll take you beyond where you are when you come to a place of transformation. And when you are truly transformed, first of all, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you will be changed thoroughly, okay? And you will be formed into a new creation. And this is very, very, very important, that we come to a place of transformation. It really is. When you think about, your life, are you really being transformed? And I really had to think about that. When I think about the little caterpillar, it's fat and furry and just kind of, scooching along in life. And that's how a lot of us are. We're like fat and furry caterpillars spiritually and mentally and emotionally and financially. We're just kind of scooching along in life, fat and furry in our mentalities and the way we function, and the way we live our lives. But we are being called to live out our fullest potential. And that's how that caterpillar is. When that caterpillar comes to a place where they're getting ready to move beyond that fat and furry stage that they are in, that's scooching along in life, they get in a cocoon, okay? They get in a cocoon and they start changing. They start changing. They start transforming, okay? And that cocoon doesn't look very pretty, okay? That cocoon doesn't look very pretty. They ball up. They get into like a shell, and they start going through that metamorphosis. They start going through the change. And then when they come out of that cocoon, they come out as a beautiful butterfly. And they're different colors and they fly. And if we want to move from that place where we are just, fat and furry caterpillars spiritually and mentally and emotionally and financially in every area of our lives, we've got to get in that cocoon. We've got to get in that cocoon and we've got to start, renewing our minds, which brings us to that place of change. And from that place of change, then we can go to that place of transforming. When we don't, think the same way that we used to think. When we don't, speak the same way that we used to speak. When we don't dress the same way that we used to dress. When we don't walk the same way, that we used to walk. We don't hang out in the same places that we used to hang out in. We don't associate with the same people. We don't have the same activities. We don't have the same goals anymore. Our goals are different. And then our lives start lining up with the word of Yah. And he's able to purge us and cleanse us and start bringing us to that place where we're living out our fullest potential in him. But do we want to go across, beyond, and through and change thoroughly? We have to ask ourselves that question. And like I said, a lot of times for me, the answer is no. And for a lot of people, the answer is no. It really is, because they remain the same. They are never transformed. They never go through the process of renewing their mind, which brings them to a place of change, which brings them to the next step, which is transformation. And transformation, a lot of times, can be very, very painful, especially if you're going, from something that you're trying to change from and what you're trying to change to into what you're trying to transform into. It can be painful. When I think of the show Hoarders, Buried Alive, many of you may have seen that show. That show is a direct reflection of, people who do not want to go through what it takes to come out of that particular situation. You see people trying to come in and help them, clean up, their houses or their apartments or townhouses, wherever they're living. And you see these people literally sleeping and and living with just clutter and trash and filth. And a lot of times something has happened to them here, mentally, and you see them fighting to hold on to things in their life, and they don't want to get rid of the trash, and they're literally buried alive in trash and junk and filth. And that's because they don't want to do what it takes to renew their mind, to get to the root problem that started that downward spiral, which would bring them to a place of change if they do it over time, and then they can transform and it would be manifested in their life. And that's what we've got to do. A lot of us in different areas of our lives are being buried alive beneath our situation, beneath the clutter, beneath the junk that is in our lives. And we don't want to let go of it. And we've got to ask ourselves, do we want to do what it takes? Do we want to do what it takes to get healthy? Do we want to do what it takes to lose weight? Do we want to, do what it takes to, get delivered from whatever level of addiction that we are suffering from? We've got to ask ourselves that question. Do we want to do what it takes so that we're not, bound up in fear and worry and stress and anxiety? Do we want to do what it takes to grow closer in our relationship with the Most High Yah, where the ultimate level of transformation takes place? Or do we want to stay stuck where we are, in our situation, in our circumstance, in our way of thinking, in our sin, in our wickedness, in our iniquity, in our demonic, prison and stronghold? Or do you want to be transformed by the renewing of your mind? You have got to ask yourself that question. And if the answer is no, be prepared to stay where you are and who you are. But if the answer is yes, then get ready, first and foremost, to renew your mind, which will bring you to a place of change. And not just change for one day, but continue to make those changes that are required and are needed over time, consistently. Now, when you think about, healthy lifestyle changes, changing what you are eating, your diet, you know, exercising and activity, that must be done over time, consistently, in order for you to see results, in order for you to see transformation happen in your body. Okay, it has to be done over time, and you have to start here. You have to start with, getting your flesh under control. You can't sit down there and, eat fast food and junk and fill your body up with things that destroy your body and expect to be transformed physically. So you may have to do some research. You may have to change the way that you think about food. Instead of living to eat, you've got to learn how to eat to live. And when you go from living, eating, living to eat, which is a mindset, and then you go from that to eating to live, it's going to change the way that you approach eating. Okay, it just is. You're going to change the types of food that you eat. You're going to change what you eat, when you eat, and how much you eat. All right. And when you think about just an overall healthy lifestyle, you're going to, start incorporating other things into your life that'll continue, that is going to help you come to a place of transformation. All right, you're going to start, move from a sedentary lifestyle. You're going to start thinking and renewing your mind in this area, and you're going to start saying to yourself, I just can't sit around all day long. And you're going to start moving. You're going to start walking. You're going to start exercising. You're going to start having activity in your life, physical activity in your life on a daily basis, which is going to, couple together with, you eating healthier. And you do that over time, it's going to transform how you feel, physically, mentally, physically, emotionally, and it's going to start, changing the way you look and the way that you feel, physically in your body. The transformation is going to start taking place. And that is a big way, a big one for a lot of people. A lot of people change in every other area of their life, but they will not change, when it comes to, and they will not renew their minds when it comes to, healthy living. And I know this is something that I've had to do and am continuing to do. And there's been, it was a long time that I was like, nope, not willing to change. Nope, not willing to change. Until things started happening in my life, or they were already happening in my body, and I just ignored them. And now I can no longer ignore what's going on in my body physically. And I have begun to make those changes mentally, which, change, brought me to a place of change. And now I'm, participating in that change consistently over time, which is bringing about a transformation. Now, transformation, isn't a quick fix. A lot of us are not willing to do things naturally, when it comes to our bodies, because of the fact that we want that quick fix. We want to pop that pill, which will get rid of the symptom right then and there. But then we end up being addicted to a chemical because we're not willing to, change the way that we think, which brings us to a place of change. where you know, do things naturally, okay, over time. You may have to, you know, start eating more fruits, start eating more vegetables, you know, you may have to start taking more natural supplements. And that takes time to get it in your system and get it in your body. And then the transformation happens. You know, you may have to, you know, you want your marriage transformed, but you haven't been willing to do what it takes, you know, within yourself to have a better relationship with your husband or with your wife. You want your relationship with your children to be transformed, but you haven't done what it takes to make that happen. You've got to, you know, you've got to start praying and saying, okay, Abba Yah, what is it that I have to do? You know, show me, you know, by your Ruach HaKodesh, your set apart spirit, where I need to renew my mind. Show me in Torah and in the rest of Scripture what I need to do, where if I need to repent, what changes do I need to make in my life? What spiritual changes do I need to make in my life? What, you know, mental changes do I need to make in my life? What emotional changes do I need to make in my life? What physical and natural changes do I need to make in my life? So I can be transformed in this area. And that's what we need to do when we go before the Most High Yah. If you're truly willing to do what it takes to transform. And this is very, very important, everyone, because we're supposed to, you know, be in a place where we're being transformed, and a lot of us aren't. Some people are the same way that they were 20 years ago. And I know all of us have come across people that we hadn't seen in a long time, and they're stuck. They're stuck in the same situations and circumstances that they were in 20 years ago. And I've just made up in my mind that I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person. I want to, you know, be transformed. You know, and I've just made up in my mind that, you know, I know that it isn't going to be easy. And sometimes I've gone back into default mode, but I've had to, you know, get up and begin again. So I just wanted to, you know, bring that out to all of you today, remind myself in the midst of bringing that out to you and asking you that question, are you willing to do what it takes to be transformed? Pray about that today. Think about that. Let that marinate in your mind today. And as you go before the Most High Yah and you start receiving instruction from Him, you know, start doing what it takes. Start with renewing your mind, you know, which will bring you to a place of change. Can start implementing that change consistently over time, you know, which will bring you to a place of transformation. And remember that prefix trans means across, beyond, through, and to change thoroughly. So I just want to thank you for joining me for WOW equals Words of Wisdom number 10. And with that, I will leave you with shalom. And I pray that you have a positive, powerful, and productive day. Shalom.